Well, we think of moving through history and subsequent periods develop what was in the earlier periods. Not so with God. God sees the end from the beginning and works backwards to what the beginning therefore has to be to achieve the end. You have to start with the Jesus story. Then you read back to where Paul comes from. He expects a Christ, a perfect sacrifice. Mistakenly, quite simply. For that to be reasonable, you have to think back to how does the Old Testament get rewritten by the Persians when they're in captivity? Satanic spirits and so on, and apocalyptic, end of time comes into being. And Paul is of that, you see. Where does this Persian influence develop from? Zarathustra, of course. How does that develop? You've got to have, prehistoric, right back to 4,000 or 5,000 BC. Primeval religion. Having said that, I mean extremely sophisticated. That springs from the Caucasus, perhaps from further east, but we can at least trace it to the Caucasus, what we think of as pre-Persia, yeah? The temples of which stretch from the Far East to the Atlantic coast, Britain, the Norsemen and so on. Their temples are everywhere. I have to check the map again, but North Africa included. Does that mean in your devotion to what you glean from the Jesus story, you adhere to the background history of such, of the nations that it comes to? No way. God developed it from beginnings that you don't wish to be in, I can assure you. It's not your cup of tea of what you see as civilized or godly. It's the manure heap of history. Flooded over with alluvial soil and goodness knows what, and what do you get out of it? Beautiful flower. Beautiful flowers. They're growing on the rubbish at the bottom of the lake. That's where the roots are. God transforms the dust of the earth into the flowers of heaven. You and me. Well, a bit more work to do, but, it's coming on. Said he in all humility. Well, not much, I would have thought. Love you, Heavenly Dad. Thank you, Dad. Do you see, God creates by a negation of what went before, not by an incorporation of what went before. In other words, we learn by our mistakes. Well, that's why, when it comes to science, suddenly the very basis of science suddenly gets rewritten. Oh, Newtonian theory is out the window. What? I thought that was foundational. It's always true. No. Or causality. Oh, no, we're abandoning causality for some new theory, It's random. What? How does... That's not a development. That's a replacement, a wipeout with something else. A substitution, an alternative. Do you see? This is what life in this universe is about. You can practice all the things that are worthless and find out that they're worthless. They're definitely what you don't want. They don't bring life eternal. In other words, you can work out all your faults from the perspective of heaven here in this creation, because it will all vanish into the disappearing eternal history, getting smaller and smaller, further and further out of sight. But you will learn. You will have learnt your lesson. Even if you can't remember what the lessons were. It's deep in your spirit. You don't do so and so. You don't believe such and such. You don't value such and such. No way am I going down that road. It led to disaster, ruin, unimaginable evil. It's a fantastic school. It's not heaven. It's a place of good and evil that you may learn to be utterly devoted to the good and utterly rejecting of that which is evil, every conceivable evil, for every conceivable good. And then, well, you graduated. You're perfect for heaven, an absolute blessing to all there and them to you. By the grace and the goodness, the loving care of our Heavenly Dad, and possibly, I gather, all the host of heaven who are in on this. Look, I don't know. I trust this is so. Thank you, Heavenly